Hello, thanks for joining us on the news. I'm Ruth Aguele. My sign language interpreter is John Bamidele. We're starting with the headlines. President Biden in Northern Ireland to mark decades of relative peace. About 100 persons have been killed in an airstrike by the military junta in Myanmar. And President Buhari concludes 2 days Spiritual Reawakening Enterprise in Medina, Tor, holy sites of great significance in Islam. President Muhammad Buhari has concluded a 2-day Spiritual Reawakening Enterprise in Medina with a guided tour of the holy site that holds great significance in Islam. He made a strong case for futuristic as well as untainted global education on Islam. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that special prayers were held for peace, unity and prosperity for Nigeria.
It has been 2 days of intensive prayers and thanksgiving to Allah by President Muhammadu Buhari in the Mosque of the Holy Prophet Muhammad in Medina. The President and members of his delegation, comprising traditional rulers and religious leaders, observed all the prayers at Rauda, a place of immense spiritual and historical significance, where one prayer is equal in reward of 1,000 prayers elsewhere.
It is very significant being the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to come here and worship Allah and also pray for the nation and also to be grateful to the Almighty for the privilege to be the President of Nigeria for almost 8 years now, and also to be thankful to the Almighty for all the successes he has recorded within that period of time.
President Buhari and his delegation were then guided on tour of the specialized Medina Museum. It provides a comprehensive cultural overview of the Prophet, his noble manners, great morals, and flexible teachings in a distinct scientific and research-based approach. The President commended Saudi authorities for deploying latest technologies to preserve and present Islam in its true and pure image. Better understanding of the religion away from its misconstrued teachings and perceptions, he said, is critical towards achieving global peace, harmony and progress.
The museum summarizes the entire life of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, everything about him, his family, what he used to eat, the cloth he used to wear, and everything. So it is indeed an interesting area, and one interesting aspect, everything has been digitalized. And look at even his words after the visit. He said he had never anticipated that we reached this level of technological advancement in Saudi Arabia. The first lesson we learn that Islam promotes peace. Secondly, unity. Look at how people are united, worshipping the same Almighty Allah, irrespective of where they come from.
President Buhari is scheduled to arrive Mecca in the early hours of Thursday to perform the Lesser Hajj. From Medina, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
President Joe Biden is in Northern Ireland on this Wednesday to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement that brought peace to that part of the United Kingdom after the U.S. helped negotiate an end to decades of sectarian violence that killed thousands. Charles Alpha reports.
On his first presidential visit to Northern Ireland, Biden was said to deliver congratulations and encourage its leaders to work on universally beneficial trade and economic policies when he speaks at a business development event at Ulster University's new campus in Belfast. But Biden was not expected to make any major attempt to help resolve a new political crisis that has ratcheted the Good Friday peace deal and put Northern Ireland's government on pause. Instead, the Democratic leader delivered two messages. The congratulation on 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement has brought unprecedented peace and prosperity to the Northern Ireland Biden opens his first public schedule in Northern Ireland on Wednesday over coffee with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak before speaking at Ulster University. He will meet with each of the leaders of Northern Ireland's 5 main political parties. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Gutierrez has appealed for significant international support for Somalia as it battles a desperate humanitarian crisis caused by drought and protracted armed conflict. Let's hear details from Uche Gochukwu.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Gutierrez said at a press conference with President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in Mogadishu that he was on a visit of solidarity to the troubled Horn of Africa nation, where 5 million people are facing high levels of food insecurity as a full-blown famine threatens to follow a drought that killed 43,000 people last year. He was speaking after visiting a camp in southwest Somalia for people displaced by the drought and by fighting between Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda affiliates and government forces.
My last visit to Somalia in 2017 was during a large-scale humanitarian operation to prevent famine. Today, the situation is once again alarming. Climate change is causing chaos. Somalia has experienced 5 consecutive poor rainy seasons, and this is unprecedented.
The drought has displaced 1.4 million Somalis, with women and children making up 80% of them. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, which sets the global standard for determining the severity of a food crisis, said last December that famine had been temporarily averted, but warned the situation was getting worse. The U.S. ambassador to Somalia had said a major government offensive backed by allied clan militias has captured around a third of Al-Shabaab's territory in March. The government claims to have killed 3,000 Al-Shabaab fighters since the campaign was launched last year, but the militant group has repeatedly shown its ability to strike back in deadly attacks on Mogadishu. The army and its clan allies are expected to start a second phase of the operation backed by the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia in the coming weeks. Uche Gochukwu, NTA News.
China has reported the first fatal case of H3N8 bird flu in humans after registering 2 other non-fatal infections with the disease last year. Now, the World Health Organization has said this on Tuesday. Let's get details from Charles Alpha.
The death reported was that of a 56-year-old woman from the southern Chinese province of Guangdong. The WHO said that a wider spread of the virus between humans was unlikely, but nonetheless stressed the importance of global surveillance to detect virological, epidemiological, and clinical challenges associated with circulating influenza viruses, which may affect human or animal health. The woman who died had a number of underlying conditions and was often exposed to live poultry and wild birds. It also said that the woman fell ill on February 22 and was hospitalized with severe pneumonia on March 3 and died on March 16. Report says the source of infection might have been a wet market visited by the woman before she fell ill, as samples collected there had been positive for influenza. The H3N8 virus is commonly detected in birds but causes few symptoms. It has also infected other mammals such as horses, dogs, and seals. The virus is known to have been circulating since 2002 when it was first found in North American waterfowl. The first recorded human cases are those that have now emerged in China. The 2 previous cases were reported last April and May, with one person falling critically ill while the other had only mild symptoms. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
A landmark direct peace talks between Saudi Arabia and Yemen's Houthi militia in the Yemeni capital Sana'a are providing an opportunity for peace to be restored in the war-torn country. Adebola Brooksland Sunday reports.
exploring amicable solution to facilitate exchange of prisoners of the warring parties and strike a deal to reach a sustainable and comprehensive political solution in Yemen are some of the strategies being employed in the peace deal. Local Yemeni officials said Saudi Arabia's ambassador Mohammed bin Saeed Al Jaber held talks with senior leaders of the Houthi group in Sana'a with the presence of the Omani delegates. The visit coincided with a renewed push for negotiation between Saudi Arabia and Houthis following the recent diplomatic reconciliation between the kingdom and Iran. Meanwhile, Houthi leader Mohammed Ali al-Houthi also said they are preparing for both war and peace during a television interview. The conflict in Yemen erupted in late 2014 when the Iran-backed Houthi militia seized control of several northern cities and forced the Saudi-backed Yemeni government out of the capital, Sana'a. Since the conflict escalated in 2015, tens of thousands of people have been killed and millions displaced, with some 17 million Yemenis in urgent need of humanitarian aid this year. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
About 100 persons have been killed in an airstrike by the military junta in Myanmar. Charles Alpha reports.
The attack on Tuesday morning around 8 a.m. during a ceremony held to mark the opening of the People's Administration Team office in PA Zingin village. It said some of the dead were anti-coup fighters in uniform, while acknowledging there could be some people with civilian cloth. Sanghain region, near the country's second largest city, Mandalay, has put up the fiercest resistance to military rule, with intense fighting raging there for months. Report says people were killed not because of the attack only. There were some mines planted by PDF around that area. And the Myanmar junta leader has claimed that those killed in the attack were civilians assisting terrorists. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has called on the international media and think tank institutions to accept the outcome of the 2023 elections, particularly as it concerns the presidential polls. The minister restated this during his engagement in London to correct the skewed narrative about the Nigerian election. Anthony Forson reports.
The just concluded general elections have been the freest and most credible in Nigerian history, despite attempts by naysayers and opposition to delegitimize and discredit the election.
Despite attempts to discredit the elections by those the minister described as investment looters in the election, it is only fair for them to disabuse their minds from preconceived conception.
I'm proud to say that our position and explanation narrative has excited those we've spoken to. But I find two things very interesting, which is that the international community, especially the international media and think tanks, had been conditioned before the election. They had a very strong mindset that this election will be won by one particular party. I think the activities of the Labour Party in particular on the social media, the various opinion polls which were very unrepresentative of the Nigerian situation, and the general high was this, the result, the outcome of the election took many of them by surprise. And I explained to them that, look, there's no way a presidential candidate who has no national organization, who has no grants people, can never win elections in Nigeria. When you look at the election results, only the president-elect met that criteria. Atiku Abubakar came short with 25% in 21 states, and Labour Party came very far behind. They were able to, they managed only 25% in 15 states, meaning that in 22 states of the federation they were virtually unknown.
He maintained that the 2023 general elections has opened a new vista for the nation's polity.
It's precisely those surprises that makes it credible and makes it, transparent.
In London, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
All right, let's take this break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Entel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit entel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Entel. Live more.
Welcome back. The federal government to suspend more than 6 billion naira for the pavement of the third mainland bridge in Lagos. This is in consonance with Executive Order 11 signed by the President for the continued maintenance of the public infrastructure. Minister of Works and Housing Babatunde Fashola made this known while briefing press on some of the approvals given by the Federal Executive Council at its meeting this Wednesday. Let's get details from State House correspondent Gideon Ifade.
And the work that we did concentrated largely on the substructure of the bridge. These are maintenance works that are critical to the structural integrity of the bridge. What we're dealing with now is different, is the driving surface and also the aesthetics.
Two memos were presented by Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, and approved by the Federal Executive Council. The first is the contract cost revision of the old Enugu-Onitsha Road from Opi Junction to Anambra border in Enugu State.
The augmentation was in the sum of 17 billion and 50 million, which revised the contract sum to 48 billion 996 million 488,925 naira.
The second approval is a new contract which is for the maintenance of the pavement of the third mainland bridge. The Federal Minister of Transportation also had two memoranda approved by the Council. The memos were presented by the Minister of State for Transportation, Ademola Adegoroye.
Today, there was a memo before Council for the provision of baggage scanners at railway stations, and I'm happy to inform you that the Federal Executive Council agreed with us and has approved that contract for scanners to be installed at railway stations. So that
the minister also explains that the council approved a 10-year concession of towage services at the new Lekki Deep Sea Port and Dangote Jetty. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development and the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development also got their memos approved by the council.
Also a policy that was passed. Last week we passed a policy on mining, Nigerian Mining and Minerals and Mining Policy 2023. Today we passed on the other half of the ministry's mandate. That is the methodological bill for 2023 as well.
So extension service really is the bane of improving our productivity to achieve food security and nutrition security in the country. The policy has been approved, and will be implementing that again along with the state government, with the local government, with NGOs. The ministry is always there and ready to assist the smallholder farmers.
Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Mahmoud, also explains that the nation is doing well in terms of food security and the provision of security to farmers.
The other two memos had to do with provision of operational vehicles for customs.
The meeting, presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, observed a minute silence in honor of late Prince Bola Ajibola, a one-time Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Nigeria marks its maiden edition of the International Day of Street Children, celebrated globally. To reflect on the essence of the celebration, a solidarity walk was organized by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in collaboration with Young Ambassadors Against Drug Abuse Initiative to raise awareness for the protection of the rights of street children.
I started begging because there was no shelter for me, and my mom was unable because she's not an educated woman. Because as a female child, we almost got trapped. Because to just help your family to get what you want, you can do anything.
Lai Mohammed sharing her story about her traumatic experience as a street child. Aliyah is one out of many who daily go through one form of unimaginable hardship or the other on the street as a result of stark circumstances. In recognition of humanity, dignity, and defiance of street-connected children, the world today marks the International Street Children's Day. As a maiden edition in Nigeria, no better place to walk the talk than the streets where these children have lived and survived daily. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, in partnership with a non-governmental organization, is raising the bar by taking practical steps to take these children off the streets. For the children who have been lucky to have a new normal, like Aliyah, the outcry for them is to renew hope for the lost sheep.
It's a shame seeing my fellow street children don't go into school or don't have clothes to wear. I don't like it. I need the ones standing, representing the president, all those to help our street children so that they can eat at least 2 times a day.
Building free schools so that they can be able to learn. And they also should be given equal rights as other kids out there.
We have the alternate school program, which is already, we're about taking off. And this is particularly taking care of the street children. And not only street children, we still have like Admajiris, we still have out-of-school children, we still have other children that somewhere, somehow on their own. This is to bring them, include them in whatever we are doing.
So we want that change, and then we want Nigeria to have at least a data of how many children do we actually have. If you have a number, then we know where to start from.
The advocacy is to realign the future of this vulnerable group and change their bleakness to a prosperous future, no matter who they are and where they live. In Abuja. Every 12th of April is International Day of Human Spaceflight, as declared by the United Nations General Assembly to celebrate the era of space for mankind. Now, the day is also to reaffirm the important contribution of space science and technology in achieving sustainable development goals and increasing the well-being of states and people, as well as ensuring the realization of their aspiration to maintain outer space for peaceful purposes. From the very beginning of the space age, the United Nations recognized that outer space added a new dimension to humanity's existence. The body also strives continuously to utilize the unique benefits of outer space for the betterment of all mankind. The UN declaration further recalls the amazing history of human presence in outer space and the remarkable achievements since the first human space flight. Now joining us via Zoom from China to speak further on the World Space Day is Wu Li, a correspondent with CGTN. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Wu. Can you hear me? Okay. Now, tell us about this important day, talking about the Outer Space Day. How important, the International Day of Human Spaceflight has contributed to space science and technology in achieving sustainable development goals and, towards increasing the well-being of states and people.
Firstly, thank you very much for having me. And today, April the 12th, is really a big day for global space fans, as today was a date for the first human being into space, carried out by a Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin on 1961, April the 12th. So on April the 7th, 2011, the United Nations have decided that April the 12th as an International Day for Human Space Flight to celebrate the beginning of the human entering outer space. So 62 years later, today many countries are developing their own manned space missions, including China. So in 2003, Yang Liwei became the first Chinese astronaut or tachonaut entering into space. So over the past decade, a total of 16 tachonauts have been sent into space. China has finished its construction of its own space station Tiangong by the end of 2022. So these space technologies have brought many benefits to scientific innovation and social welfare. So today is a day to remember the human's exploration to outer space and technology breakthrough.
Okay, so how deep is China's knowledge in this technology, and is China ready to embark on knowledge transfer?
So after over 3 decades of development in manned missions, China has finished the construction of its first Tiangong space station. So the Tiangong space station is a national space lab for Chinese scientists, and the space station is mainly composed by Tianhe core module, Mengtian and Wentian lab modules. So Chinese scientists and experts can conduct a variety of space experiments aboard the Tiangong space station. Every year, 2 batches of Chinese astronauts can go to the work and live aboard the space station. So besides that, China is also continuing its lunar exploration project and also Mars return mission. So China is always welcoming international collaboration with other countries. So I'm not talking about this kind of technology transfer. But I want to mention that China is welcoming international collaboration with other countries, including African countries. So the first batch of 9 international scientific projects selected from 17 countries will be sent into China's space station in the coming years. So foreign astronauts and scientists are welcome to work and live in China's space station, including many African countries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wu Li. Let's continue to hope that the importance of outer space is being utilized for peaceful purposes. Thank you very much for your time on our news. Okay, Mr. Wu Li there, correspondent with CGTN, talking about the International Day of World Space. And that's the news. Thank you very much for your time. Remember, it's still a countdown to the national population and housing census. 20 days to go from now. Make sure you're counted. I'm Ruth Aguwele. My sign language interpreter is John Bamidele. Bye.